All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to break down the wild story hidden inside a single stock chart. What happens when a stock that's been slowly sinking for months just suddenly reverses course and explodes? Well, we're going to find out, and we're going to use the recent action in TrueCar stock to see exactly how it works.
So this one chart really tells a tale of two completely different stories. For months, you had this slow, painful bleed, right? From almost $2 all the way down to $1.40. But then, bam, in a single day, something happens that just completely flips the script. So let's dig into how that happened. To really get why that explosion was so huge, you first have to understand the calm. Or maybe it was more like a slow dread that came right before it.
For almost 3 straight months, this stock was just stuck in this totally predictable downward spiral, a classic downtrend, right? It just kept making lower highs and lower lows, just kind of drifting down and down until, bam, it hits rock bottom at $1.40 on October 13th.
Okay, so after all that slow bleeding, everything changes. And I mean everything. October 15th, this is where the story gets really interesting. We're not just talking about a nice little gain here. This thing skyrocketed. It jumped more than 62% in a single day. It went from about $1.48 all the way up to $2.40. Just an absolutely massive, massive move.
Okay, so a big price jump is one thing, right? But if you really want to know if it's for real, you got to look at the volume. That's the smoking gun. On a normal day, this stock traded about 300,000 shares. Well, that day, the volume just exploded to almost 7.5 million shares.
And that is the key right there. This wasn't a bunch of small-time traders just pushing the price around. No way. When you see a volume spike this huge, that's a giant flashing sign that the big money, the institutional funds, have just stepped into the room. And it strongly suggests that something big has changed their mind about this company. So, okay, the stock had its huge day, but what does that actually mean for the future? Right? Did this one day completely rewrite the story? Well, to figure that out, analysts start looking for clues, technical clues, hidden right there in the chart. All right, first up, we've got moving averages. Now, the easiest way to think about these is like a compass for the stock. They help you see the real trend by smoothing out all that crazy day-to-day price noise. And wow, this table just lays out the new reality perfectly. Look at this. The price is at $2.40. Right? That is way above its recent short-term average of 166, and it's even above its long-term 200-period average of 210. The ship has absolutely turned around. But here's where it gets tricky. It's not a completely clean story. It's kind of like getting conflicting witness statements. On one hand, you've got these bullish signs. The RSI, that's a momentum indicator, says there's still plenty of room to run. And the MFI, which literally tracks the money flow, is super high. That means big buying pressure. But then you get these cautionary signals. The Arun indicator, which is a little slow on the uptake, is still kind of stuck thinking about that old downtrend. And the Chaikin oscillator is negative, which could mean some of the big players are actually selling into this big rally. So you've got this real tug of war happening under the surface. So what do analysts do with all this conflicting info? Well, they start mapping out the battlefield. The resistance levels up at 254 and 260. Think of those as the ceilings. That's the line the bulls need to break through. And then you've got your support levels, especially that key floor at 210. That's the line the stock absolutely has to hold to prove this new trend isn't just a fluke. Okay, so you take all these pieces, the huge price jump, that incredible volume, all those conflicting signals, and you put them all together. What's the final verdict? What does the analysis say? Well, the conclusion is actually really clear and pretty powerful. The analysis basically says this wasn't just a good day. No, this one event has completely changed the entire technical picture for this stock. It's created what traders call a powerful reversal pattern. In plain English, that long, painful downward slide that went on for months, it looks like it's over. That story is done. Now a whole new upward path has been created, and it's backed by that massive volume, which tells you it has some real muscle behind it. But okay, that was what happened. The big question is always, what happens next? And the analysis doesn't just stop there. It actually lays out 3 very different paths this thing could take from here. First, you've got the bullish case. The rally just keeps on going. It breaks through that 254 ceiling and starts making a run for $3.
Then there's the neutral case. The stock basically takes a breather, it just chops around sideways for a bit, maybe between that 210 floor and the 254 ceiling. And of course, there's the bearish scenario. It just can't hold that super important 210 level, and it starts to pull back and give up some of those huge gains.
So when you boil it all down, the big takeaway here is what you'd call cautious optimism. All the evidence is screaming that the trend is changed for the better. But, and this is a big but, anytime you get a move this huge, this fast, it just naturally brings a lot of uncertainty with it. You just have to be cautious.
So if you're watching this stock, here's what it all boils down to. First, can it stay above that critical support level at 210? Second, does that high volume stick around? You want to see that buying interest continue. And third, does it have the strength to finally break through that 254 resistance level? The answers to those questions, well, they're going to write the next chapter of this story.
This whole technical breakdown gives us an amazing story of what happened on the chart, but it leaves us with one last really big question we have to ask ourselves. Was this incredible day a signal of a real fundamental change in the company itself, or was it just a temporary market fever? The chart has definitely turned a new page, but only time is going to tell us how this story really ends.